Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk a little bit about discussions and demonstrations today. So these two things are actually pretty related to each other. We might not think of them that way always, but discussions and demonstrations have both kind of come out of just sort of natural human discourse. So they show up in completely different ways in the classroom, and also in many different ways. So trying to nail them down is a little bit tricky. The literature isn't super clear about, how to define discussion or how to define demonstration because they're used in so many ways. But here's what we have. With discussions involve some kind of dialogue, something where there's more than just one person. They're interactive. It's two people or more talking, not just one person saying something. So when you're just talking to your students lecture style, not a discussion. It has to be a back and forth. That can often turn into an argumentation. So having two students or more kind of try to come up with a way to make sense of information, share that information effectively, and then persuade someone, is a good way to use discussion in a classroom. Whereas demonstration is a little bit different. Demonstration is all about sensory engagement, where you're activating those five senses. Even if you're focused really intensely on one, demonstrations involve some kind of real physical thing where you can actually touch it, see it, smell it, hear it, all of that kind of stuff. Now, both kind of came out of the same sort of organic method. They both evolved with humans, but discussions evolved with humans to be a very efficient information exchange. It's really good at communicating a lot of information quickly. They're good at that, or discussion is good at that, because it's symbolic. It uses symbolic logic, symbolic representation to be able to explain ideas very efficiently, very quickly. That's a little bit different than demonstration. Demonstration also kind of evolved with humans. It was a way that we sort of developed another way to exchange information. But this time, demonstration is very thorough. It's not quite as efficient, but it's very thorough because it's real. You get to see, you get to feel, you get to smell, touch, hear. You get all of that stuff kind of at once, or at least you can access all of that kind of thing with a demonstration or multiple demonstrations. So it's very thorough, whereas discussion is very efficient. But they're both sort of natural things that humans use to communicate. Now, thinking about the theories that we've had in our Bates textbook that we've been learning about, Paulo Freire had this kind of good quote, I think, about how dialogue liberates, but monologue oppresses. So to him, discussion is a way to make the classroom democratic, to make the classroom something where everybody has a voice instead of just, your students kind of sitting there being told things. So it was a good way to bring out that democracy in a classroom. Noam Chomsky had the idea that language is an organic thing, that not only does language sort of build itself up naturally, but that language in turn allows us to build up knowledge with the language. And then there's sort of a consistent reciprocal relationship between the two. So when your students are using language in more and in different ways, they'll begin to add more layers to their understanding of that topic. So we have two theorists here for discussion. I've also got two theorists here for demonstration. Robert Gagne was the guy who was talking about how demos can chunk learning into these digestible bits. He cautioned that sometimes a demo, it doesn't necessarily do that on its own, but they lend themselves to that, where you can use demonstrations to break it down and show students one thing at a time to kind of help them see what's happening there. Makes it more digestible. Whereas Neil Fleming was talking about how demos can engage multiple learning styles. Now, Fleming also was careful to say that that's not a guaranteed thing. You're not for sure going to activate multiple learning styles with one demo. But using different kinds of demos or trying to even take one demo and sort of look at it through different lenses maybe, you can try to activate those different learning styles. So if you have students that appreciate visual representations more, you can focus on the visual representation for some demo. If you have students that understand by hearing that better, then they can maybe engage with that sense in a different way than your other students. So you can activate multiple learning styles with demonstrations. Now, quick wrap up here. Both of these things are super important in a classroom. They have myriad uses, so trying to just tell you what's one good use is not going to really help. It really depends on the classroom. I myself am a physics teacher, so using demonstrations is super important for me to get my students to kind of see what's happening so that it's not theoretical anymore, but it makes it more real. Of course, for them to understand that, though, we have to have lots of discussions. They have to have a good solid buildup of the language so that they can use those symbols to effectively communicate things. You know, if you've got complex ideas or even simple ideas, it helps to be able to use symbolic explanations so that you don't get bogged down in the nitty-gritty, little detail by detail communication. So 2 effective ways here to share knowledge: demos and discussions.